Welcome to ICAN Learning Solutions, your hub for debt collection solutions. I'm CraigANel, your debt collection specialist, here to guide you on this journey. In our videos, we explore crucial tools and skills to boost your debt collection performance. We cover collection strategies, we review software, and discuss collection agent training and outsource management. Join us for this educational and insightful adventure. Welcome to ICAN Learning Solutions. For over 2 decades, I've been at the forefront of debt collections, navigating various sectors from banking and financial services to home loans, vehicles and education. But for me, it's not just a job, it's a true calling. My mission is to understand human behavior. Here's the secret. Every text, email or agent phone call carries a unique tone that can make a debtor think twice about you, not just their debt. I come from the old school where spraying and praying and scare tactics were the norm. I've lived through it all, but I've learned that treating debtors with respect and dignity, educating them, leads to better results. The key to success in debt collection lies in investing our energy and resources into training our collection agents. After all, they are the ears and eyes and the face of a business. They are our most invaluable assets. Join me on this journey as we explore the art of debt collection, where human connection is crucial as the numbers. This is more than a profession for me. It's a commitment to making a difference. My name is CraigANel. If you're working for a collections contact center, whether it is for a credit provider or an external debt collector, it is essential, whether you're an agent, supervisor or manager, to understand your collection strategy. And what that basically entails, it is a workflow of events and it's triggered by certain activities. But essentially how you are impacted is that on any given day there's a specific outcome that's needed. So what would typically happen, a campaign could involve the following. It could be that new accounts came into your environment, so that'll be referred to as a new handover. And SMSs or text messages, WhatsApps, emails, or even chatbots might be released or sent out to the debtors, including a call campaign, and that's where you come in. So it's essential that when you do speak to a customer, that you are mindful that they may have received other forms of communication, and this is critical in the way that we would like to approach negotiation, is that there's a mindfulness of what that campaign is. And there are basically 3 campaigns. First one, as I've mentioned, could be new accounts that come into your environment. The next could be a follow-up call that you've made on a promise that the debtor has made already. And the third could be the most common one, which is dealing with defaulting debtors. And what that means is basically they have made a promise to pay, and now you're calling a few days later because you haven't seen the payment reflected, and therefore you've made the call. So that's kind of the 3 things that we will be focusing in this episode. But there are also other campaigns such as debit order campaigns, and basically what that means is where the goal is to convert more customers that are just paying via electronic fund transfer or cash to a more reliable tool, which is a debit order. And then another campaign, often close to the end of the year, there's people are often offered discounts, or even better, some people are given the opportunity to settle their debt with a nice, almost kind of Christmas kind of vibe to it, where a special campaign where they can, if they settle their debt within a certain period of time, they'll be able to pay a lesser amount. So that's kind of the campaigns that we would like to focus on. There are many others, But it's important, I think, for us to stress the point that it's essential that you understand on any given day what campaigns were released and what your goal is when you do make contact with the customer. So as discussed earlier, there are 3 main types of campaigns that most contact centers would run in the collection space. The most common one is when a new account comes into your environment, so it's referred to as new handovers. Then you'll have another campaign where you're following up on a promise to pay, and then the third one is a defaulter. So basically when somebody has made a payment arrangement and then now they haven't made the payment and you are calling to kind of follow up on that and to hopefully make a new payment arrangement. What's important to remember always is that generally there would be text messages, WhatsApps, emails also being sent out at the same time when you as an agent is required to make that phone call. So please be mindful of that and do not be naive of the fact that the debtor is fully aware that you're calling them. And for that reason, it's very, very important that we stress that you have a very clear outcome for every type of campaign. So if it's a new handover, you need to make the debtor understand what the consequences are, why you're calling, the urgency of the payment, and be very, very clear. And later on, we'll speak about what we call the MAD method, which is basically referring to asking the debtor 3 questions. What was the method of payment that they've agreed? What was the amount that they've agreed? And then finally, what date did they agree to make that payment? But we'll unpack that in a chapter just a few moments from now. And that's important. When you're dealing with a defaulter, it's something that most people are used to, but I don't think people are effective in that regard, because the objective is now to get another promise to pay. And our view is no. If the person promised to pay you 3 days ago and they've defaulted on that, you need to insist immediate payment. Because we're assuming that they've had cash available, so therefore it is critical that in your negotiation to be effective that you insist to get the payment at the time that you were calling. And then just to go back to the follow-ups, I spoke about the MAD method early on, which is the traditional call would be something like this. Good day, Mr. Debtor, I'm calling from ABC Collectors, and this is a courtesy call, and we are just kind of reminding you that you've promised to pay so much rand at this date, and you were going to pay via method of payment debit order. Have a fantastic day. And then everybody feels great about themselves. That no longer works, right? Remember we said earlier on that the debtor receives an SMS and an email in most instances, or a WhatsApp or a chatbot, whatever that may be. So they're fully aware on what they owe, and they're fully aware that they've promised to pay on a particular date. So the call should be as follows. Good day, Mr. X or Miss X. I'm calling from company A. And a few days ago on a particular date, for example, on the 10th of November, my colleague Mackenzie called you and you guys have made a payment arrangement. The reason I'm calling is just to understand if you still remember that payment arrangement. Can you perhaps tell me what date you promised to pay? Awesome. And then what was the amount that you promised? Thank you. And then the method, EFT, correct. And that's it. That is what a true follow-up is. In fact, the ICAN way, and we're using the MAD method. So this is a new way. This is more effective, proven to be more effective, and we encourage you, I think, to remember the key points, which is understand what campaigns you're working, have a game plan, and just following this, we're going to talk about the treatment plan. And then also most importantly is to understand then how you're going to, kind of overcome some of the challenges that we will present you in a chapter, just a few chapters after this. Thank you.
Good day, everybody. Welcome to the episode where we talk about the treatment plan. And I want to give you some background about this whole story called the treatment plan. In fact, it started me visiting my doctor for a general checkup. And what had happened was the doctors changed. My previous doctor retired and a new person took over. So I was quite nervous and skeptical. And I walked into the surgery. He opened my folder and the doctor kind of just read everything. My previous weight, blood pressure, medication I've been on. I said, wow, this is cool. Obviously, it's a Captain Obvious moment, which is, this is what doctors do. But the transition from one doctor to the next was simple for me because they had the history. And then I thought to myself, well, how do I do this in the collection space? Where I know in contact centers we make thousands of calls, and the way the world has evolved now, everybody's on a script and we almost sound robotic. How do we create an impression to the consumer that the call is customized for them? In other words, experience I had as if I've been with this medical practitioner for many years. And the idea of the treatment plan came on. Now, obviously, in medical terms, the treatment plan is generally after the your consultation, whatever the illness may be. If you had an injury in sport, you go for physiotherapy or some other intervention. So in the collections context, the treatment plan basically is where a collection agent, moments before they make the call, instead of focusing on the script, which is good for compliance, but they look at information that's unique to the debtor. And it could be the last payment, who they spoke to, what kind of communication went out to them, what was their last excuse, the reason for not paying. The previous agent, did they mention any consequence for not paying? And then basically what you do then as an agent, you then go and say, well, Mr. Nell, you spoke to Mr. Jones last time and you told him that you were unemployed, but you just told me something very different. So that's basically, in a nutshell, the purpose of the treatment plan. It has many benefits, and it's definitely going to help agents give them a bit more confidence, and it's going to help you also. I think the most important benefit of the plan is that you'll be able to ask very specialized and focused questions, which will create the impression to the debtor that, hey, this person kind of customized this call. They know me well, they know my previous actions, they know my behavior or the comments that I may have made. So let me stop and take this person serious and perhaps close a deal with him. Good day, everybody. Hope you're well. Today we're going to talk about the treatment plan. As mentioned in the introduction, it's been developed just to make things much easier for the agent. It will build your confidence. It will make sure that they ask very focused questions with answers they already have that's available to them. And it's going to force you as an agent to look at the screen, listen actively, and then to ask questions. Okay, so we're moving away from this environment where you are sounding robotic, where you're spending so much time, 2 minutes almost, reading a script to ensure that you're compliant, but it does not necessarily enable you to negotiate an effective payment arrangement and get them to pay. So we hope that you'll enjoy this episode. Thank you. Right, so let's talk through the key components of the treatment plan, starting with the financial history, and then we're also going to go through the communication history. So whatever engagement the debtor may have had with the collection agent or other collection agents in your company. And as I've mentioned, the method works in such a way that it's going to give you or the consumer the impression that this call has been customized for them specifically. One of the key components of the treatment plan is the tracking the financial information. I will always remind you that a treatment plan could be you just taking some notes while the dialer is doing its work. So don't stress too much. I will show you an example where I've digitized it with one of my clients, which makes it much more easier. But most importantly, it's essential that you record the key information as an agent, and then ask very, very focused questions. So yes, we're moving away from the robotic reading a 2-minute script so that you're compliant with the client's requirements or QA. You'll still be doing some of those things, but your majority, in fact 80% of the call, will be you as a collection agent asking very, very focused questions and getting down to the business negotiation. Remember, the main important benefit of a treatment plan is to create the impression to a consumer that this call has been customized for them. And remember, they are now immune to all the collection agencies calling them and sounding robotic. And in fact, some companies do enable robots to call consumers, which is where the world is at the moment. But we believe at ICAN that having that personal touch will make a major, huge difference. So first of all, let's talk through the key components. So it's always to be mindful that what is the account status? Meaning, is the consumer still able to use a credit facility? If it is so, are they perhaps 30 days in arrears, or is the account been written off? And your job basically is just to collect the outstanding total due and make a suitable payment arrangement. It's always important to always kick off your negotiation demanding the total due. And I urge you guys, please don't go from total due to 50 Rand. Most systems will have a minimum payment, and indeed on the treatment plan that we've automated, it will have a minimum payment, but it also has a nice tool there where you can calculate alternative payment arrangements, but it will always be higher than a minimum payment. Minimum payment is what your client expects of you. It's or the company of your credit provider. What is a minimal acceptable amount that will take from the consumer and that will get them out of the trouble that they're in. And I've mentioned the alternative amounts. The treatment plan, if automated, will have a calculator available, and we can then adjust the repayment period. But you can do that with a pen and paper with a calculator very, very quickly. Is there any discounts available or a special offer? Be mindful that you're still going to be asking for the total amount due, and then present that special offer perhaps, when the person shows some resistance, but always make sure that the offer is quite limited and there's a very short time period. So in other words, you qualify for a discount, but you need to settle within 3 days. And are you open to that? Or even, and the next one would be settlement discounts. Many companies, especially with debt that's been written off, companies are offering settlement discounts. So just be clear as an agent, in fact a smart agent, to be carefully present these options. And I do know in a scripted environment, people actually read the whole list. Yeah, you can get a discount, you want to settle, blah blah blah. That's not what a smart agent is about. You offer one option to them, that's it. Look at the payment history. So if they do agree on a payment arrangement with you, look at the dates that they've paid in the past. Look at the amount that they've paid, because that will give you kind of a view if they will continue in that line, and then bring it up to say, well, you've agreed now to pay 500 Rand, but I've seen last month on the 10th you've paid 250. So I just want to make sure that you're going to be able to stick to this arrangement. Look at the payment dates that they've paid. Obviously, for smart agents, we will always be, if they're employed, push for the salary date. And also always remember, there's no such thing as month end, because in South Africa there are trends. People pay the 15th, 20th, get paid 25th, and then at month end, actual month in the last day of the month, but there could be 28 days, 31 days. So just be very careful and veer away from this concept called month end. Just have very specific dates in mind. And then look at payment methods. If the debtor was on a debit order before, try your best to activate that solution, because as you know, it's much more reliable. Right, next let's talk about communication. So what sort of engagement was had with the debtor in the past? Who engaged with them? What was discussed? What kind of promises were made? What sort of arrangement was made? And most importantly, what did the previous collection agent talk to them about? What were the consequences, and so forth and so on? This is quite interesting, especially if you're working with a defaulter where the person promised to pay on a particular date and then do not pay, and you're calling 3 or 4 days later to follow up. And we strongly suggested you say, hey, hi, how are you? You've had a conversation with Craig on the 10th of November, and you promised to pay on the 12th, and you haven't paid. And that again obviously gives the consumer or debtor a bit of a shock to say, hey, this thing looks quite customized. It looks like they've just removed a folder somewhere, and they're very, very focused and specific. We also suggest that you refer to texts, emails, or WhatsApps that may have been issued or sent before. And always remember, there's no debtor that would kind of give you the impression it's the first time they know they're in arrears. Most companies would be sending multiple channels of communication to the debtor, so refer to that. Yes, we've mentioned all of these, and also yes, be mindful of what payment options available. We've mentioned earlier, are there any settlement discounts, and look at the payment history as well. That's cleared, and talk to them and say, hey, I've seen in your system that you've been paying 250 Rand every month. Are you aware that the minimum payment is 500 Rand? So again, you're using information, you're asking questions to answers that you already have. Look at the payment dates and look at the methods that they have used in the past. Very, very important. So here we go. We've got two very, very good examples of a treatment plan. The one on your right is something that has been automated with one of my clients, and you can see very, very simple information that's available: the payment history, what communication has gone out before, what dates and, that they've paid, what arrangement you've made, what collection agent that you've spoken to. There's quite a nifty tool on there on how to kind of recalculate payment amounts through extending the term, so that's quite cool. And then also visually, the agent at a glance can see when this debtor paid last, because it's colored in green, and then red, obviously they haven't made a payment. So we've made it with you as an agent in mind to make things as easy as possible. Hey, but don't stress if you do not have this tool. Engage with your bosses and ask them to contact us so we can help them develop it. But most importantly, as I'll show you on the left, you can actually do this just by way of writing down key information. So you can see there I've written the campaign down, the amount that I want to collect, what last engagement was this. For example, there may have been an email that was sent, and I'll refer to that. Who was the last agent? So in this case, Mackenzie was the last agent that spoke to the debtor. What was the last payment date and amount? And what excuses did the debtor use if it's available? But it also requires, guys, that your colleagues capture this information as well, especially excuses that the debtor has used, and also what kind of consequences you'll see on the digitized version. It actually asks you to capture what consequences did you mention, i.e. listing on a bureau, legal action, or perhaps the inability to use their facility, or the benefits that if they do repay, that they'll be able to use the card again, or whatever the story may be. So this is critical, and we hope you've learned something. This is not complicated, guys. Basically, keep your scripted information short, less than a few seconds. In other words, identify the data, identify yourself, mention that the call has been recorded, and then get down to the purpose of your call. And then after that, then it's all free flow. Not necessarily, obviously, have your specific plans that you want to ask, refer them to other to the communication or also payment behavior that they've executed in the past. And we promise you, if you follow this method, by having this treatment plan, you will be on a positive journey, and your payments will definitely improve.
So now that you're aware what the call campaign is, and you've developed a nice treatment plan, then obviously, hopefully you're connecting with somebody at the end of the phone call. And typically there are 3, or in fact 4 call outcomes. One is you connect with somebody and it's the right person, or what is also referred to as the right party contact. The next is where you connect with somebody and it's a relative or a colleague or friend. They confirm that it is the correct telephone number, but that person is not available. Then it's a new common one and quite popular in South Africa. It's one where the customer answers the phone and then suddenly is unable to speak, and that's what we call third-party recall. So they would be saying something to this effect: well, I'm busy driving now, and I cannot speak, or I'm at the hospital, or I'm working at the moment, and we will help you deal with those with that kind of outcome. And then there's a scenario where people drop the call once they kind of hear that you are calling regarding outstanding debt. So we're going to, in the next chapter, provide you some tips on how to deal with these call outcomes. So here are a few tips in dealing with the call outcomes. Let's deal with the most challenging ones. And the one is where the debtor recognizes that you're calling regarding the debt and suddenly has a prior engagement. Now, we've mentioned earlier on that we don't necessarily like scripts, but there's a component that we believe is very useful. So let's kind of just use an example of what typically call centers do. So this would be the one example. So you would, the telephone would ring, the person answers, you say, "Hey, may I speak to CraigANel, please?" "Yes, it's Craig speaking." "Hi, Craig. This is Zoe calling from ICAN collections regarding your outstanding debt." And there the debtor realizes, "No, I need to make up a story." So they would typically say, "Hey, sorry, Zoe, I'm unable to speak to you right now. I'm busy driving, or I'm at the office, or I'm in a meeting, I'm at the doctor's surgery, or whatever. I've got an emergency." So all these excuses come up. And what typically happens is that the collection agent would put that in a different queue or diarize the call for a later callback. Now, I've been around too long to know that I haven't seen companies call these customers back, and if they do, cool, well done. But we are in the collections business, not in the customer service, diary, callback, make appointments, and part of negotiation is taking control of the call. So here's a tip. So I'm aware that you need to comply and you need to kind of ensure that you're speaking with the right person. So we suggest the following. Phone rings, the person answers, "Hi, may I please speak with CraigANel, please?" "This is Caitlin speaking." The debtor responds, "Who am I speaking with?" And then before you answer, say, "Hey, is this a convenient time for us to speak, Caitlin?" "Yes, it is." "Okay, well, my name is CraigANel and I'm calling from ICAN Collections regarding your ABC debt." So what is the tip? Trap them into the, "Are you able to speak? Is this a convenient time?" so that they can't use it as an excuse. And another pointer, guys, that I want to remind you of, if you are available, and I know not many of the Gen Z uses their phones, but the older folk do. If you're available, you would answer the call. Why suddenly would the person be busy? And it's only because they've recognized or learned that you're calling regarding the debt. So that's a simple, uncomplicated tip. And then you can go through your normal compliance stuff, such as, just identifying the debtor, which you can do a bit earlier, and then also reminding them that the call is recorded, and you can go through your normal compliance stuff. But that's the tip in dealing with that. The other tip is dealing with third party. So the outcome here is, if the person responding saying, "Well, I acknowledge that CraigANel, and in fact this is a phone, or that she lives in this house," your goal now is to kind of find out where they are and get that person to bring Caitlin to the phone, or to give them the phone, or to gather new information. So if Caitlin's not available, where's Caitlin? Is there any other way I can reach Caitlin? That would be one scenario. But your goal is to get new contact information, or to get this person as your agent and to get them to get this call to Caitlin as soon as possible. So that's kind of your goal, not Caitlin's not available and then call back. Again, we are not customer service. Please remember this. You're not customer service, so it's essential that you get information out of them, or get this person to send a very, very good message so that debtor can call back. And often there's also tricks again that the debtors plays, but very, very common. And I'm seeing call center after call center where the excuses are piling up, where agents are just wrapping up the call to say the debtor is not available. We have made contact with the telephone number. It has been confirmed it does belong to CraigANel. We need to change in how we approach that. So that's the second one. And I think that's the key one. Often with the dropped calls, it's a tough one, especially if you push too hard. But I think the key thing is to get to your objective, your purpose of the call as soon as possible, whether it's a new handover, whether you're doing a follow-up, or whether they've defaulted, or whether you're offering a special campaign. Please get to it as quick as possible. I've heard too many calls where people read the entire script. It takes 1-2 minutes, and that is where the debtor becomes immune to your call. And as a smart agent, that's not the way we suggest you operate. So I hope that you found this useful. Dealing with debtor excuses has been a challenge for many a call center agents across the world, and indeed in South Africa. We've taken it upon ourselves to provide a solution as ICAN to assist agents deal with it differently. We call it the ICAN way. And what that means is, how do we solve the one problem that call centers have in the collection space? Often when an agent is confronted with an excuse such as debt review, unemployment, or affordability, or fraud, they would transfer this to another department, change the category of the call so that someone else can deal with it. And in the external debt collection space, often the account is referred back to the client, and we believe that is wasting and losing so much opportunity. We've made contact with a customer, and we need to overcome that. And we believe that our training program, and you'll see some of it in the background now in the video today, is available on YouTube. And if you're a subscriber or you one of the ICAN clients, you'll have free access to the videos, and as well we've also created a few assessments or quizzes that you can take to understand to help understand your level. So as a challenge is unemployment. Probably number 1 out of 10 of the excuses. It's quite a challenge in South Africa. Almost 34%, or of our consumers, not on consumers, but the population is unemployed. It's significantly high in South Africa, and therefore, not surprisingly, quite popular as an excuse. But unemployment in South Africa, with its very sophisticated labour legislation, there's quite a few remedies available. So as a smart agent, be mindful of what's available to the consumer in respect of resources such as the unemployment insurance fund. In some instances, they might have credit life insurance that covers some of these. Some people might, if they've lost a job, might have access to their packages. If they're retrenched, they might have access to resources. So please, guys, we encourage you, when unemployment is used as an excuse, please don't end the call there. You need to be asking questions. What was it? What happened? Were you fired? Were you retrenched? Because with that, there are resources available in South Africa in particular that can assist consumers get over this difficult bump. And on average, people find jobs within 6 months. That's part of a survival element, and I think you just have to be mindful. And we make a distinction between the two components, one being the death of the actual debtor, as it were, or where a debtor is alive but uses it as an excuse, where they say they've contributed to a relative or family member's funeral. Quite popular in South Africa. We spend significant amounts of money on funerals. It's a thriving business in South Africa. And it's often linked to certain cultures where people are kind of obligated to contribute and use whatever resources available. But it's not an excuse for not repaying debt. As you can see, it's a very, very, very lucrative business. Over 10 billion annually is used for all the activities linked to a funeral. But it's not an excuse. As it says there, it's no excuse for not paying. So we encourage you to ask questions, not to just jump into a scenario where you think that there's you cannot engage. If it is a relative, we provide you with some very, very useful tips, with sensitive guidelines dealing with a relative if the debtor is deceased, and what their process is, and guiding them through that if it is available, so that they can apply for the various remedies available. But if it is somebody that is contributed to a funeral, first of all, you can't prove it, and so it's not an excuse for not repaying. Obviously, we encourage you to be
empathetic, but for affordability, again, like a classic in South Africa, and also we say it in tongue-in-cheek because it's popular. I think most agents on any given day would be confronted with this as an excuse, and we provide you with very good tips in dealing with this excuse. Many kind of reasons is brought up by consumers. Unemployment is significant in South Africa. COVID brought about some challenges as well for people to, where they wouldn't given any significant increases, or they had to take a reduction in income. So it is real, but also, as we always warn you, the consumers are smart and they do figure out kind of what works with other contact centers. So as a smart agent, we've trained you differently. We encourage you to really kind of take on the tips that we've given you, that this is not a valid excuse anymore, and it's not a valid excuse for not paying, because there should be a way out of it in respect of, first of all, asking the right questions. What has led to this? Is an affordability issue? Are they over indebted? And obviously you'll be able to assist them with your repayment plans, and perhaps offering a discount if that's available, or in fact to structuring the payment arrangement so it's a little bit more affordable. That's queries, and the queries could vary from they've made a payment, they've got a problem with the product or the service, and for that reason they're not paying, and it's quite popular in South Africa, and we've covered it also in the training itself, and it's just something that you need to be kind of prepared for, because this happens on a daily basis. In fact, recently there was a scenario with a client where they have a payment issue, so payments are not reflecting on their collection system. And I said to them, the way to deal with that is, especially if a debtor does have an outstanding balance and they claim they've made a payment of a certain value, don't argue, don't have debates, don't get into a fight. You're clear on what your objective is, to get a payment arrangement or even a settlement, and just to overcome that, you'll say, well, thank you, we appreciate that you've made the payment. It may not reflect in my system, it's probably processing at the moment, so I've noticed that you've got a certain amount still outstanding. How about us making an arrangement for the next payment, and in fact, for your convenience, how about taking out a debit order, which will make things much smoother. So there you overcome it. It's not that difficult. Don't get too stuck into the technicalities, and often companies have very good administration, or in fact customer service departments that will assist in that regard. However, they need to pay. Most companies will focus on solving the problem. If it's a service issue or the product is defective, it's not an excuse for not paying. Right? So I think always encourage the debtor to continue with making payment arrangements and sticking to the payments. And if you can see, there's almost 22 typical excuses for not paying. So we encourage you to prescription. Again, I would put in the top 3 out of 10 of excuses used in South Africa, and often I find that a collection agent who's not capable of dealing with it would rather create a query or put this into a special folder because they do not want to cause any ructions with the consumer for the fear of any kind of challenges coming their way. But we have created this video to help you through that, to help overcome that. Prescription is a remedy available to consumers where no collection activity or no payments have taken place for a period of 3 years, and you'll also read that there are other types of debt that prescribes over different periods, and very clear rules around that. But it's important to understand what prescription is, how it applies, and most significantly, that kind of part of your job as an agent is to interrupt prescription. And by getting a promise to pay or someone acknowledging that they owe money, there we go. You've helped your company and your clients significantly. So please don't be too stressed out about this as an excuse. Part of your goal is to interrupt prescription, but you need to be clear to understand the processes, understand the rules around it. And if debtors prescribe, I can guarantee you there's no ways the accounts will be moved to the collections department or will be outsourced to an external debt collector. Again, I remind you this, that it's a popular excuse, and debtors can become quite technical, but as a smart agent, you just be calm. Understand training video on debt review as an excuse for not paying became quite popular, and the students quite enjoy it because it's a very topical subject matter. But we would like to encourage you to pay quite a bit of attention to the detail around it. It is a popular defense or remedy for debtors in South Africa, and rightly so. We've got a very bad history in South Africa of the credit providers really kind of over-indebting our consumers. So I think yes, it's justified. But I think the key components that you need to take out of this, that there are various stages. It's very time sensitive. So as a collection agent, it's critical that you understand the various phases. There's the 17.1 when the application is made, with the gathering information and so forth and so on. It goes through the various stages, but it's important to understand it, the phases, and to ask the right question. Remember, administration order in South Africa has been around for a very, very long time. In fact, you can still see some of these remedies being used up until today, and it's quite significant on the credit bureau reports. Again, another popular excuse for not paying, and it's, again, we repeat that it's important that you understand what administration order is, at what point you are able, as a collection agent, is able to engage with the debtor. But I also promise you that if you look at the tips on the video, that it's highly unlikely that an account will be given to the collections department, or in fact handed out to an external debt collector if a consumer is going through the process. So always keep that in mind as a collector. If a consumer brings this as an excuse for not paying, we provide you with some very good tips on asking, especially what stage they are in the process, and we encourage you to go through the tips on the video. It's not a valid excuse. In the instances, obviously, when it is, it's true that they are going through the process. Obviously, then there are certain processes you need to follow. But as some other lender has started the process, or if the account has been outsourced to you as an external debt collector, that your client has started the process of applying for the judgment, so therefore they are unable to negotiate or make payment arrangements and so forth and so on, or the fact that they have a judgment granted already. So again, we encourage you to become comfortable with the solution or remedy. It is, as I said, there's various specific phases. For instance, most credit providers would first send a letter of demand, or what others would also issue a section 1 to 9. That's a letter kind of just outlining kind of the goal that the client has and what options the debtor has, what rights they have, and then they go through the process, and even as far as to the stage where they get the judgment, and also then there are options available after that fact where they can go for their assets. So it is important to understand, again, sequestration, or where people are declared insolvent, is quite popular as a solution available to debtors. Very pricey, but something that we believe it's important for you to understand, become familiar with, become comfortable with, because it can be quite tricky if you don't understand the process. And again, we cover this in our training on YouTube. So very, very important that you go through that and even work through the learner guide. And we're repeating ourselves because we believe that knowledge is power, and if you can become more and more comfortable with understanding how the process works, the legislation associated with, you can overcome it. It is a very expensive solution available to consumers in South Africa, and somebody who uses this as an excuse will be very close to the process, because it involves quite a bit of scrutiny, and getting certain professionals like an insolvency practitioner involved. Again, highly unlikely that an account would be moved to the collections department or outsourced. So it's critical that you just look at the training video and just be on the lookout for the tips. It's right at the back. You'll see there, kind of preparation. There we go. And you can see, so just, use the resources that you have to empower yourself. And in South Africa, fraud is one of the most popular excuses that debtors use for not paying. We cannot blame them. It's quite prevalent in South Africa, and for that reason, as you can see on our YouTube channel, we've included it. We provided you with a comprehensive training video, but I want to cover the key points. I think what is important to understand that it's not an excuse. They are quite simple and uncomplicated processes, and most credit providers would in fact invest significantly because they lose as well. So they will investigate
They will look into the matter and kind of work with the debtor in that regard. And so if it is brought up as an excuse, please be cautious. If you just think about yourself, if any of this would, if you know, something like this would happen to you personally, you would immediately bring it to the credit provider's attention, wouldn't you? You would immediately kind of inform the police or the various authorities that can assist you. So this is important, and that as a debt collector, that you are clearly and mindful of the potential that the debtor might actually be using this excuse falsely. So we provide you with some very, very useful tips. Asking the right questions, determining when the fraud was perpetrated, whether they've reported it, and so forth and so forth. So the video provides quite useful tips, but I think for the purpose of the call flow, it is essential as a collector that you understand how this whole process plays out. And secondly, to understand that you can overcome this as an objection raised by a debtor. We hope it's clear to you that negotiating effectively is multifaceted. Every call is complex, and we know that if you follow our method, which is to understand campaigns, having a treatment plan, understanding there's going to be 3 or 4 main call outcomes, and then obviously engaging with the debtor and then dealing with the objections, we are confident you're going to get to a point where you have a payment arrangement. And the key thing in wrapping that up and ensuring that the debtor's probability of paying is overcome, we've introduced a concept called the MAD method, and it basically means the following. M is for method of payment, the amount that the debtor agrees to pay, and then the date that they will be paying. Now there's another module that you can go and look up on YouTube that takes you into a lot more detail, but let's cover just the high level so that you get an idea on how we use it. So let's assume that you've got to a point with the debtor that they've agreed on an amount, and we mentioned that, so Mr. Nell, you're going to be paying 800 Rand and you'll be paying on the 10th of this month, I apologize, and then also you're going to be paying via debit order. The debtor says, great, I agree. And then you start wrapping up the call, and this is where the technique works exceptionally well. Listen carefully. So as you wrap it up, obviously we suggested you courteous thank you. We really appreciate that you've made an arrangement. It's the right thing. It's really going to benefit you, and you can mention some of the benefits. So as we conclude, Mr. Debtor, can you remind me what the amount was that we've agreed? Hopefully they'll give the correct amount. Thank you, sir. What was the date that we've agreed? Let's assume it's the correct date. And then what method of payment? And in doing so, the debtor realized that they need to pay attention. And what this is trying to achieve is to avoid debtors that are just complacent. And most of these guys just say, yeah, get done with the call, and they'll say whatever you want to hear. And you're feeling quite good about yourself because you're capturing a payment arrangement, and often it's a settlement. And then you discover they do not pay. For most contact centers, over 50% of the people that have made promises would be defaulting. And this method reduces that. This kind of gets the debtor to understand they need to pay attention. We do know some contact centers will send, once the promise to pay has been captured, would send a reminder, email, text message, WhatsApp, or chatbot might even contact them. That's cool. But this method in wrapping up your call is very effective, because when the debtor gets any one of that information, a piece of information wrong, or cannot answer the question, then you let it rip and you treat him as if they would be defaulting. And then you can say, sir, do you understand the consequences of not paying? I've just told you and we've just agreed on the amount, and you forgot the amount, or you forgot the method. And obviously this is the opportunity where they realize that you mean business, and then they need to pay attention. And I would go so far to say, please, do you have your phone with you? Do you mind just writing it down? Or do you have a pen and paper? Please just record the arrangement, because it's important. And then that's the opportunity for you as an agent to bring in some of the consequences for not paying. On the flip side, if they answered all 3 correctly, you can talk about the benefits of paying. And there's many, and it depends on also the portfolio that you're working on. So we really hope that you enjoyed this episode. We've kind of combined all the episodes on effectiveness negotiation and pulling it together for you in a logical way. And I think the most important takeout for you is that you can no longer, from this watching this video, just make a call and just think things are great. You need to plan. You need to understand what campaign you're working. You need to be able to deal with the initial call outcomes, depending on who you speak with. Then they're going to bring up any one of the 10 excuses for not paying and deal with that effectively as a smart agent. And then when you get to the point when you've already you've made an agreement, always wrap it up with a MAD method. So before we go, I want to illustrate how else you can use the MAD method. And a great way to use it is when you do a follow-up call. And remember, we explained to you what that means. It's when a customer made a payment arrangement, and typically you'd be calling them a few days before the payment is due. And historically, as I've mentioned earlier on, an agent would do the following and say, hi Mr. Debtor, this is Craig calling from company blah blah, and this is a courtesy call, just reminding you of the pay promise you've made to pay. And then they read all the information and the debtor says, yes, cool, great. That's ineffective, guys. They do receive SMSs, emails, or WhatsApps. The purpose of this call, especially if you've made contact with them, is to ensure that they're going to pay. And the way to do it is the MAD method again. So you can do it this way. Hi, Mr. Debtor. My name is Craig calling from company A. Is this a good time, convenient time to speak? Yes, it is. Great. The reason for my call is we're just doing a quick follow-up on the payment arrangement you've made last week with my colleague, Shireen. And can you just remind me what the amount was that you've promised to pay? Hopefully it's correct. What was the date that you promised? Awesome. And what method of payment were you going to use? You see, those are 3 questions. If they get any of the 3 wrong, trust me, my friends, they will default. And remember, you're catching them 2 or 3 days before. If they get it wrong, you talk about the negative consequences, you reinforce that arrangement, and please remember, you're not renegotiating a new payment date. Or this is follow-up, reinforcing, you remind them after that, this is the method, the amount, the date, ask them to repeat it again, and then you can wrap up the call. We hope you enjoyed this episode. We look forward to meet with you again on. Please like and subscribe, and reach out to us if you'd like some more information on our training.